Welcome back to the channel. It's Jolene with Jolie's Star Astrology, and I'm going to talk about this full moon that we had yesterday. Yeah, my schedule is really wonky. Not that I have any specific schedule anyway, but I got a lot going on in terms of moving and whatnot. But you know, full moons can be talked about for quite some time. It doesn't always have to be on the day. You know, we talk a lot about, look for things to happen on the full moons. Like things can come to culmination. You know, we feel the energy, but it's approaching and it's descending. And when you're talking about a full moon, the moon is what sort of like reflects and deposits energy and light cyclically for a long period of time. So these culminations or these things that could be coming up that represent the energy of the full moon, this one, or whatever full moon is coming up, can be a culmination of a longer cycle. It may be something that isn't affecting you significantly in any way, so it is applicable the day after, the day before, and a lot of times years and months later. So a lot of people track the cycles of the moon and the full moons and the eclipses to see how it interacts with your specific chart, and that's how predictions and things are done. So we'll talk here about this full moon in Capricorn that we had yesterday. So I'm going to make the chart a little bit bigger, yeah, also while I'm doing that, thanks for being here. If you're new, we're just running across the video, please subscribe. Consider subscribing, liking, sharing, and if you're returning, thank you so much. I'm glad that you're here, and give the video a thumbs up and throw a comment down below. All right, so let's chit chat a little bit about this moon. I'm going to draw. I go back and forth. Some days I draw, or sometimes I draw, sometimes I don't. So I have this full moon here. Moon is in Capricorn up here, and the sun down here in Cancer. And I talked about the sun going into Cancer earlier, and what Cancer energy is, and the things that might be highlighted or coming up for all of us, right? And then of course, based on our own individual Cancerian experience, what might be coming up. These are tendencies. These are things we might be seeing. It just might be reflections, and thoughts could actually be situations and things that happen. But when we have a full moon, it means that there is an opposition, moon and the sun opposing one another on opposite ends, and so we're trying to combine that energy, but in any time, that's what we're trying to do, is combine the opposite energy to create a balance, and a more whole expression and understanding of what those energies mean for us, and how we can balance things out, so that we can sort of move along our path, individual paths in life. And so Cancer, as I mentioned before, Cancer energy is all about the home, family, and your roots and your mother. Cancer energy is about our history, right? So really, really rooted. It's our history way back from, even when we were in the womb, or even, before. So we're talking about family history, ancestral roots, family karma, potentially, maybe with our mother or parents in general. So this could be bringing, this Cancerian time can be bringing up, things that are deep, deep in our psyche and in our emotional makeup, and that's what Cancer is. Cancer is where we hold our emotions from way, way back, right? Things that we may not even be able to remember, but because they were developed when we were so young, or even before we were born, we can feel it. We can feel that, and that's what Cancer is about. It's about feeling. It's very emotional, feeling in water, going with the currents, very receptive and intuitive. So it affects us very, very deeply. Now, if you have Cancer placements, like I talked before, and we have Mercury that's gone into Cancer. We will have Venus going in there. If you have Cancer placements, then a lot of how you talk and think and feel and express Mercury is very Cancerian. So it's coming from a very deep emotional place. As Venus moves in there, same thing. How you love, what you value. So Cancer energy is all about our emotional insides, our innards. Like, how are we emotionally inside? What's our experience? And when we read about Cancer astrology in an astrology chart, or here, we always go to see, like, what is the moon doing? Why? Because the moon rules Cancer. So that is very important. That energy will integrate into how you express or how you experience Cancerian energy in your life, in your family, and your history. Now, when we talk about Capricorn on the other end, which is where this full moon is sitting, that is all about our structure and responsibility. It's about how we learn, what we learn, how we mature. So it's a balance of integrating our emotional experience, a lot of times specific to our family and our history, with how are we going to use that energy to actually and incorporate that to build and mature and strengthen our minds and our life as we come to an understanding of what that specific and individual Cancerian experience means for you, for each of us individually. So when we talk about the moon, and then the moon representing Cancer and Saturn representing Capricorn, it's mother, father also. So there's themes there as well. But the moon represents, our mother's experience too. When we were pregnant with her, like I said, Cancerian energy is like in the womb. It represents like, being a fetus inside the womb, inside where we're floating in water, which is very, very much like, crab-like experience before we're born. What was that like? What kind of energy was passed on to develop our nervous system, right? And so we are processing and learning to work with that. So Cancerian energy can be very giving and loving and nurturing, just like a mother, right? But depending on its experience and what it's gone through, what it's learned to do, which goes way, way back, right? It can also be overprotective, overbearing, smothering in a lot of ways. It can, if your Cancerian experience as a child taught you that it wasn't okay to express your emotions, so you hold them back, then you could have, it's going to bust out at some point, right? So it could, based on the energy that's coming at you, because Cancerian energy feels every single emotion that it is exposed to, and so their emotions fluctuate based on that exposure, because of that intuitive ability and that empathic ability. But as we experience that Cancerian energy from the time we're young, if we are shut down, if our emotions are shut down, they're not acknowledged. But as human beings, we need to gain security and feel nurtured in some way. We might learn to be manipulative emotionally because we weren't allowed to express. So it's important, and this is a good time to do this. And we all do this at some point in our life. And again, Saturn is maturing, so this is something in a process that we learn over time and mature into if we are choosing to look at our own patterns, our emotional patterns. Then we can grow into something that is mature and that will give us a strong foundation, especially if we didn't get it when we were younger. And so many of us didn't. So this is a time for us to, if things are coming up, think about how we process and put out into the world our emotions, in terms of our communication, in terms of how we love and how we feel into the world. If nothing else, this is a good time, if you see those things coming up, it's a good time to process those. Not that any time isn't a good time, but this is a good time because, synchronistically, things might be coming up around home, family, mother, history, things like that. Also nostalgia. Cancer is about nostalgia, so you can just be taking a walk down memory lane, just really thinking about or looking, like even just scrolling through your Facebook page, right? Things that happen on your timeline, reminiscing, looking at old pictures, calling family, visiting your parents, things like that can happen during this time too. You can have the announcement, Mercury in Cancer, the announcement of a baby that is on the way, right? Where there's a change in your family. Saturn represents growth and maturity and change, and in the family unit, that could be changing the structure of your entire family unit by actually having a baby or losing a family member. These kinds of things can come up during this season, as well as collectively, and I talked about this before, things that are focused and centered around women's issues, housing issues, real estate, things like that, which I talked a lot about in the last video. I know that I was really a little irritated and angry over that, and I was, and I still am, but in my unique Cancerian experience, looking at my chart, just to explain how you might do this, go to your moon, because that's a combination of how you express or might experience through Cancer energy. You'll experience that and express that through your moon placement. Mine is in Leo in the 3rd house. That's about communication. Leo is very, very opinionated, and he speaks up and very stubborn in a lot of ways. Can get super fired up, fire sign. So I got fired up about the experiences that I had in the real estate and rental markets. Still am. And so that's how I expressed it. My Cancerian experience is in the 2nd house, so it is all about my security in my home and, what I value. And, I'm moving my house, so that is sparking something emotionally. It's like I'm having to let go. Cancer doesn't like to let go. It wants to hold on to what it knows, what it's familiar with, and what's important to it. So, emotionally, that can bring up, issues. And like for me, if I have a Leo moon, it's going to be, expressed, like that. So it was a combination of things that evoked that emotion, but I felt very, very strongly, and still do, that the issues coming up around women, which is, Roe versus Wade, and the real estate market and rental industries right now are, I feel strongly that is affecting our society in a way that, is not good. It's threatening people's security, and it's making it more difficult for people to take care of their families. And so that emotional, display came from there, and that's how I express when emotions come up. So for me this month, the themes for me are all about security, right? And on the other side of that is about other people's money, how I feel connected to my history and people that I've bonded with in my house that I've bonded with. So other people's money, in the sale of my house, it was paid off. So that's a perfect expression for me based on where my Cancerian house is affected, is expressing for me this month. So take a look at where that's happening for you. And if nothing is happening and those themes aren't coming up, this is a good time for reflection and revisiting things around home, family, and emotions. So those are the things that are coming up during this full moon. And if nothing else, again, a moon is reflective, it's time to take a look and, what can we work on? Astrology in the universe doesn't just, make things happen to us or for us. It's just another form of a divination, or a way to look at something if it resonates with you. And most people that are subscribe to an astrology channel, Astrology Resonates. It's just another way of understanding and interpreting things that are coming into our consciousness, into our lives possibly, or into our minds. It's it's just something else that can guide us and help us navigate where we might want to go. So those are the things that are coming up for this full moon. Emotions and family, and how do we process that? How do we use those emotions to actually create stability and maturity in our lives? How do we use that? And that might mean, taking a look at how we might need to heal those emotions so that we can care for ourselves better and for other people. So that is basically the full moon, how you can use it, what might be coming up, and just sort of a perspective and take on that. Now, for me, it's never just about one thing. When I look at astrology and I see the charts, it's like the integration of everything in the story that's being told. I always see it. And so I'm not going to talk about every single aspect here that is happening at the time of this full moon or for the rest of the month, but I think there are some things that are significant. When we look at the full moon happening in Capricorn, and knowing that Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and we have Saturn there that has been in Aquarius for quite some time, and it is retrograde right now, but Saturn that went through the sign of Capricorn before it went into Aquarius, sort of picking up what are all the lessons that we need to learn in that area, because Pluto, traveling through the sign of Capricorn and just getting to its later degrees is changing the landscape of what our structure is as a collective. And I think we can all agree that we've seen that, right? Especially and significantly in the last 2 or 3 years, there isn't a structure in terms of government or corporate America, or even our lives, that is exactly the same and that hasn't changed significantly and required us to make modifications in the last 2 or 3 years for sure, but since 2008. And so Pluto's doing its thing. We're seeing all these changes. The astrology tells us to keep an eye on that, pay attention to that, what's changing. That's never going back to the way it was. And I think there's a lot of emotion, and Pluto is conjunct this full moon. There's a lot of emotion about that change that we've all been experiencing in our individual lives and in the collective, and how, we might feel controlled by it. It's starting to get to a place where nobody is really escaping that experience, and Pluto is going to come through, and it is going to create that change, and we are going to feel that it's almost can be obsession. It can just feel like we are frustrated because we might feel like we're being controlled by entities that we've relied on for years, financial institutions. Maybe we're in too much debt, or maybe it's student loans, or the government in general making decisions or not making decisions that we need to support our individual lives when it comes to Cancerian issues. And so that's really important, and the fact that Pluto is conjunct this moon could intensify that feeling of frustration and power and control, to push us kind of forward into a place where we're thinking about what can we do that's new and different. Kind of like it is what it is. We can't go back to the way things were. At least I don't think things are going to go back to the way things were. We have to come up with new and different ways of, creating and sustaining our lives and taking care of ourselves and our family that are much more individual, reliant on ourselves rather than on an institution or, other people's money, right? So in the financial sector, like borrowing money and things like that, how do we become more sufficient and stand on our own 2 feet? And those things might be coming up during this full moon as well. And so back to Saturn here, which rules Capricorn and in Aquarius, which is all about the collective, and it's all about, it's ruled by Uranus. So we have a very heavy Uranus and Aquarius flavor in the astrology during this full moon, as well as for a while now, sort of telling us you can't stay where you are. Like, things are changing, they're not going back. We have this full moon, coming along with a square here to Uranus, which rules Aquarius. Uranus is the planet that rules Aquarius, and Saturn is the ancient ruler. So these Saturn and Aquarius are, they're right there at home in that Aquarian energy, and Aquarius energy, Uranian energy, challenges us to think outside the box. It's like we can't stay where we're at. The North Node here says we've got to move to a different place, right? We can see in the world that things are happening in our financial, in the markets, for instance, or in the availability of resources, or the housing issues, or through restrictions, all of the restrictions that we have felt over the last few years that are saying, well, we can't stay here anymore. What we need to do, and Saturn is saying, the way we read this astrology is like, we need to find a different way to move forward, right? And that can be inventing new things, and it can also, it's definitely about teamwork, like working together, and also about figuring out, Uranus and Aquarius is all about, I have a new idea. It's about making something new and innovative out of something old, right? So how can we, it's like recycling, right? So Saturn in Aquarius is like recycling, like rehabbing things. And so there's a square there along with this full moon. And that's significant to me because the squares to Uranus from Saturn we've been experiencing now for quite some time. Here it's happening again. And Uranus is sudden changes. Again, it's more about innovation. It's moving forward. It's things are changing. Come up with a way to move things forward. And with Uranus, rather, being in Taurus for so long, that is pushing us and many people into understanding, realizing, and trying to work towards creating self-sufficiency, right? Simpler life. Taurus is all about the earth, how we grow from the earth and sustain from the earth, how we take care of our bodies, how we can create wealth for ourselves and the people that we care about going into the future. So heavy Uranus, Uranian and Aquarius energy in this full moon, as well as, has been for a while and will continue. Uranus and the North Node there, square Saturn, is saying, again, you can't stay here. The universe has, you're being moved into a new place, a new destiny. This is going to take coming together, getting creative, compromising, using your mind, being inventive, coming together as groups. It's like the power here is in the numbers, which are the people, not the governments, right? Capricorn and Pluto. It's sort of like we have the opportunity to come together and take control of our own destiny, right? That takes coming together and appreciating the Aquarian energy that is in front of us, and that is appreciating one another and our contributions, and that they're all different, and compromising and learning how to work together. So we're seeing a lot of these things happen where we're getting creative and unique. And more of that, right? More of that needs to spread. And, you know, a lot of times when you're talking about Uranus energy and Aquarius people, they're the people that, you know, come out with, you know, the comments and the ideas and things that might be so futuristic that people kind of go, oh, you know, you're weird, that doesn't make any sense. But they can see things in the future in a way that you know, a lot of us you know, can't, and that's their piece of that. I mean, we all can, you know, tap into this energy, right? Anybody can learn about it, but you know, I found that people with really heavy Aquarius placements in their chart, they, you know, they're sort of looked at initially as like the, you know, weird people that have these really far out, strange ideas. A lot of times they're rejected in their peer groups, you know, because they're like, it's like a mad genius, you know, like Uranus and Aquarius is genius, but it's a lot of times before its time, right? But I think we need to pay attention to that Uranus energy, that Aquarius energy, and at least give it a listen and a consideration, because those are the kinds of things that, coming up with unique ideas to support our society and one another, is what is going to create a new way of doing things once this Pluto does its decimation in our current structures, right? And of course, like I said, Pluto's not doing it, but astrology, you know, is a representation of us that resonate with this, with astrology, is a way to sort of explain, like, you know, what does this mean? You know, kind of like, you know, I've said this before, people that might read a Bible and believe in prophecy there, or, you know, just have intuitive messages that come through them psychically. I mean, we all have a different way of understanding, you know, our paths and the paths of our communities. And so that's what I see. It's like heavy Uranus and Aquarius energy, and that's not going away. And you know, I think a lot about that when these issues came up around home, family, and real estate. And this is just one example, you know, again, my unique Cancerian experience and reaction emotionally. You know, I have an Aquarius midheaven, right? And that means, you know, at the top of my chart means that I really do consider Aquarian ideas. It's part of my mission, it's part of my purpose, and so I don't find it odd and weird at all, you know. This is what will move us forward. And so, you know, when I'm thinking about this Cancerian issues, I mean, I'm going through what I'm going through, selling my house and finding a rental, and then that particular week I had a couple of conversations with friends that I've known for a long time about housing issues that they were going through. And I've been thinking to myself, gosh, you know, there's a way out of this. And when I was looking for my rental, I was trying to negotiate a deal. Like, okay, if I pay the rent in advance, can we, you know, talk about reducing the rent and things like that. And I was running into brick walls, boom, 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 which is why, you know, I felt like, oh my gosh, there's so much greed, and, you know, I can maneuver this, be angry about it, but what about other people that, you know, may not be able to? And, you know, who can I go to help me understand the things that I don't know? And so, you know, I'm like, there's got to be a better way where we can compromise and negotiate with one another so that we can sort of temper the situations that have been going on just in the housing, real estate market, and that, you know, people feel like they've lost money. You know, during the pandemic, landlords and property management companies will say, well, you know, a lot of people didn't pay their rent, so we're trying to catch up. And then, you know, those people are like, well, other people are like, well, my rent's being increased and I can't afford it anymore. It's sort of like the cyclical thing where we're like passing, you know, difficulties onto one another just to sort of sustain ourselves or our businesses. Although I will say that during the pandemic, any business, so rental company, property management, they had access to PPP money, so they could cover their losses. What they did with it is another thing. Some of it, again, I'll say, is just sheer greed. But there's got to be a way to get through these difficulties. Again, find new ways to go into the future that are different than what we've been doing, or what the things that have gotten us to this point to begin with. And so I was talking to one person, my hairdresser actually, who is a Cancer moon, and I just happened to see him the very next day after I did that video, and he tells me, his rent is being raised, and he and his partner have to move, and like he had been looking, and he's like, I don't know what to do. I really can't afford what's going on. He's a hairdresser, he doesn't make a ton of money. And so one of his clients, who he's had for a while, happened to have, he was telling her this story, happened to have a rental property, or a property that they don't use, only when they have family come in town. And I guess it used to be for a mother-in-law that had passed away. And she's like, oh, we have a place. Maybe there's something we can do here. And they worked it out. And so the rent was higher than what he could afford, but they agreed to allow him to do some of his clients at the rental property, reducing the cost of his rent at the salon, and then also giving her her hair, doing her color in her hair every month as part of that. And it was a win-win situation. Why, and I'm like, yes, that's genius. Like, these things can happen. I had another friend who is a Cancer sun and a Cancer moon, who ran into selling her house, and she was sort of grabbed by one of these investor companies who offered to give her top dollar for her house, and she got roped into that situation, and she was able to come up with a compromise that made her feel good about what she did, and allowed her to follow through with the contract with that company that she realized afterwards was not what she wanted to do. And then in the end, she did the right thing. She did what felt good for her. She ended up doing very well, and having the repairs done. That was the issue for her, was that she didn't feel right selling to an investor, really, or passing on some of the issues that were there to a seller, an individual buyer. So she did the repairs. That made her feel good, passing it on to somebody else. She made enough money on it that she was able to make a profit and still pay this investor company that she was literally grabbed by. Like, she had no idea what was going on. She was taken advantage of, which a lot of people don't understand. They're being taken advantage of in one way or another in this market. So those were two things that came up right away where I was like, yes, like, this is very Aquarius. This is very Uranian. This is exactly what the astrology says, is we can work together to come up with interesting and new ways to help take care of one another, and get through these situations that we're all experiencing, in that we're all doing that differently, right? That could be planting a community garden and helping people with the rising cost of food, or a mechanic who is helping rehab older cars for people because we can't get parts or new cars. Things like that. There are ways that we can sustain ourselves going forward, and we can all do something. And if we can't, do anything, or we haven't found what that is yet, we can at least speak up about it, right? So if you have an opinion about women's issues or about the housing issues, anything Cancerian, that's going on in the collectives, at least speak up, right? That at the very least you can speak up for somebody else, if nothing's happening to you personally, or for anybody that you know or that's in your family. And if you can't do that, then really just, I would encourage everybody to not go against the grain. I'm just going to say it like, don't be an asshole. That's the very least you can do, is not be an asshole and completely self-serving. I know that's probably not going to happen, but again, for everybody, but again, there are power in numbers. If there are enough people that adopt an Aquarian way of thinking, which is teamwork and moving things into the future, we can make things happen, right? We can change the landscape. I don't think we have much of a choice, right? Like I mentioned, the astrology is representative of that, but we can all see it, right? Don't need astrology to say, gee, this is happening, our world's changed and it's not going back. But it is reflected right there in the astrology, which is completely insane. And every time I look at this stuff, I'm like, wow, it's right there and it's super cool. It's a good way to explain it. So this full moon bringing up more things like that for us to consider, and individually, wherever we have Cancer and Capricorn in our chart, we could have significant things triggered or happen, come to an end or come up emotionally. Most of that, if you have Cancer and Capricorn placements that are very close to the degree of this full moon, which was 21 degrees of Capricorn. So, if you've got anything from, 19 or 20 degrees of Capricorn or Cancer, all the way to maybe 23, 24 degrees, you could have some things come up. I have a Lilith in Capricorn at 26 degrees in the 8th house, which is other people's money, right? Selling my house, paying that off, something I'm bonded to. I mentioned that. So, I've explained what came up for me. But wherever the house placement is, and if you have significant placements, things will come up. Now, if you are a cardinal sign, and you have, which is Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra, and you have placements there, it will create squares, right? This full moon, Cancer energy, Capricorn energy is squaring, and a square causes a tension, which is really just, we have to make a choice, right? We can feel this tension where we have to make a choice, whether that's an opinion or an action. It forces some kind of expression or action in some way, and so there could be some tension there, or it could be actually be something exciting and just a change that we weren't expecting as well. If you have this full moon happening on your angles, then you will be a cardinal sign. So Capricorn ascendant, a rising, having Cancer descendant, Aries rising, having Libra descendant, or vice versa, Libra rising. This full moon and these Cancerian energies could be bringing up significant things for you. So look at your chart. Where is Cancer and Capricorn, or Libra and Aries, and do you have placements there? And this full moon or any of the Cancerian energies affecting you? And think about what might be coming up for you, or anybody in your family. So those are the things to look for, and that's an explanation of how all of this sort of synthesizes. We're being moved along, right? This is the evolutionary process, and we're all feeling these things and thinking about these things, and being presented with opportunities and changes to embrace them, process the emotions, and realize that we have to move on and create something different. Cancer and Capricorn. So I would go over here and tell you, based on your rising sign, what house you should look for these types of things to occur for you. What area of life? The house is the area of life. If it affects you, what you might look for. Or reflect on, right? Like, what is happening? So I'm going to switch over here and to the clock. And yeah, if you are an Aries rising, so this would be happening for you. in your fourth house of the home. So this could be bringing up tension or, you know, a need to take some kind of action around your home and your family. You know, mother could be triggering childhood things. You could just be, you know, taking a walk down memory lane or visiting your parents, mom or dad. Could be, you know, adding people to the family, or, you know, unfortunately there could be endings. But, you know, Aries by Mars, you are likely playing some kind of role in whatever's going on, you know, in terms of, you know, being a leader, or, you know, trying to move things forward, or maybe you're trying to claim your independence from whatever might be going on in your home family. Could even be your career, but it looks, you know, it's foundational in some way. It's your career, it could be affecting your home and foundation. If you are Taurus rising, the Cancer full moon, Capricorn full moon and all the Cancerian energy is happening in your third house, or your ninth house. Boy, my eyes are so bad. I need to make this bigger. It is happening in your ninth house of, you know, the higher mind, your beliefs. Could be foreign travel, but, you know, it could just be learning something new and stating, like, you know, this is, or changing the way that you believe. You know, Pluto in the ninth house is, you know, changing the way you believe. There's a connection there to your spirituality, so it could be something like that, or just, you know, education in some way. We're talking about Capricornian type things. Look for a change there in communication and learning. If let's see, for Gemini rising, we have this Capricorn full moon happening in the 8th house of you know, other people's resources, soul connections. It's going to be paying off debt. You could be letting go of a, you know, karmic connection. That's the house of karma as well. Could be, you know, intimate types things that you're very attached to, that could be coming up around home, family, history, legacy, money. Let's see, moving on. Cancer. So if you're Cancer rising, sitting right in your first house, and Cancer risings are used to processing their emotions and putting that out there. But, you know, Cancer rising, you are actually putting yourself out there and expressing your emotions, embracing who you are, you know, embracing your body, embracing your individual Cancerian expression, memories, emotions, and you know, it could be affecting your relationships. You know, the Capricorn full moon is on the other side in your 7th house of relationships. But I see this as a good thing, right? So if you are a Cancer rising who has trouble expressing your emotions, you may find that things are coming up that are making it easier. There's some kind of change there where you're embracing who you are and your emotions, which is really awesome. As long as, you know, your emotions, you know, are processed in a way where, again, you know, like I mentioned before, it's not smothering or manipulative, or, you know, Cancer can sometimes, you know, expressed in, you know, sort of like the shadow side or darker side can be, you know, they feel like they own you, like, I own you. You know, if I've nurtured you, taken care of you, I own you. So it's kind of like, you know, if I can't have you, nobody can. They have a hard time letting go of things, and if they, you know, someone separates from them, then they'll find a way to get back at them, right? And, you know, maybe not say anything. Cancers aren't always confrontational. They can be. But, you know, just be careful that that's not the expression. You've got to go back and, you know, see, you know, what is brewing or has been brewing, you know, in terms of your emotions from way, way back. Do that. But really, this is just about being uniquely you, expressing who you are and how you feel. So it will affect your relationships. Leo, if you are a Leo rising, you know, this that's happening in your 6th house. So this is your daily routines, your work, and you know, how you're of service. There's something changing there. So you could have a change in job, you could have a change in your health. for this full moon, it's like time to process. You know, a lot of times, like when you have this Cancer energy in your 12th house, like your emotions, your pent-up emotions, your childhood trauma, whatever that might be that you're not expressing. 12th house is like that. It's like expressing, you know, it's kind of hidden. You don't express it easily. Could actually materialize, like actually come out in your body and cause, you know, physical ailments and things like that. So it's super important. That could be something that's coming up for Leo rising. Otherwise, just, you know, all of a sudden going like, yeah, you know, now it's time for me to take care of myself, and, you know, you're doing that psychologically as well as physically, and that could be backing off of some of your, you know, daily routines or the things you feel like you are burdened by. So that's Leo rising, and that could be family, right? So it could be like you're sort of like, well, you know, maybe you need to be taken care of as much as you take care of others, or vice versa. All right. So if you are a Virgo rising is happening in your 5th house of joy, right? So Capricorn in your 5th house. This is, you know, you might want to, this is about romance and children, right? This is about your creative expression, the house of joy, your activities, things like that. Something could be changing there. You know, Virgo rising likes a classical type of creative expression, and, you know, with children there, something could be coming up around children. The opposite side, the Cancerian energy, is in your 11th house. So, you know, yeah, it looks to me like it could be around children or maybe a romantic partner. Could be some changes there. Look for, you know, all of that Cancerian emotional expression, that Capricorn sort of like seriousness and practical, you know, action or behavior coming in somewhere around issues with romantic partners, children, or creative expression, just in some kind of creative expression project. Okay. Let's go to Libra. So Libra rising, we have a cardinal sign. This is going to be square for them. This is sitting in your 4th house of home as well. The Capricorn full moon. 10th house, just like we talked about with Aries, it's going to be the inverse. So same kinds of things. You have family, change in a family situation, possibly something coming to the surface, to your awareness. Look for, you know, new members of the family, changes, losses, additions to the family, changes in real estate. Things like that. Just, you know, even memories coming up from long ago, emotions, things to process. Libra rising. Scorpio. The Scorpio rising, the full moon in Capricorn will sit in your 3rd house of communication, your immediate environment, siblings, your relatives, you know, other than your parents. Or grandparents that sit somewhere else. So there's some kind of change there. You could be getting some news there, some kind of change. You know, maybe a relative is letting you know that they're moving, or that there's been a loss in the family potentially, or maybe they're moving closer to you. Something. 3rd house is all about communication, action. It's ruled by Mercury, so it's movement. You know, the 3rd house is also cars, so, you know, could be something there. You know, the Cancerian energy in the 9th house could be getting some kind of communication from far away about a relative or a sibling. Look for something like that. We have Sagittarius rising, and this will be happening in your 2nd house of the Capricorn full moon, in your 2nd house of values, resources. The inverse of Gemini. So you've got Cancerian energy in your 8th house. Chances are there could be a lot of emotional things coming up with women, maybe mothers, debts that you might owe people in the last month, things that really you know, you could be tied to for quite some time, or have very deep emotions about. So, you know, those things could have been coming up for you all month, and even, you know, that could even be buying a house, selling a house, helping somebody with the family, dealing with an inheritance. Whatever this is, it is causing, or you could be feeling, you know, that's sort of doubling down on some kind of change in your, you know, house of values. Like, is this changing what's important to you, your financial situation? That would be Sagittarius rising. Then we have Capricorn rising. So this is happening for Capricorn rising in your first house. This full moon is happening in the first house for Capricorn rising. You know, I said for Cancer it was first house. The Cancerian energy is in Cancer's first house, but the full moon is happening in the 7th house. But still, the themes are the same. It's balancing emotions, relationships, and how you're showing up in the world. So, darn it, I apologize for that. But Cancer rising, you have this full moon in your 7th house. Cancer energy this month in your first house. Capricorn rising, you have the full moon in your first house. So this is about change in you, which you've been experiencing for quite some time. It's emotional change. This could be, you know, actually, you know, endings of some sort that you're feeling in relationships based on, you know, emotions in some kind of partnerships or relationships. Could be coming up for you. Could be home, family, women, your mother. This could be pretty significant for Capricorn rising. Definitely a reinvention. You know, just something that's, you know, you're in this cycle, right? This full moon cycle that could go back many, many years, depending on your placements and what your, you know, individual, you know, tendencies are in your chart. This could go back quite some time and be bringing things up from many, many, many years ago, or even, you know, from childhood. So Capricorn rising, significant things coming up emotionally and things changing about you, yourself, and how you express, and in your relationships, very similar, like I said, to Cancer rising. So let's see, we've got Aquarius. So Aquarius rising is happening, this full moon is happening in your 12th house. So this is bringing up significant emotions and changes through your senses, right? So this is subconscious. At the very least, maybe things you're not understanding or comprehending clearly, or maybe just not wanting to talk about. But, you know, Aquarius rising, look for insights, right? Emotions, things coming up in and through your dreams that are related to, you know, again, like with you, similar to Leo, it's the inverse. You know, could be coming through your physical body in some way, your health in some way, or, you know, how you are feeling mentally and emotionally. Pisces. So we have Pisces rising. Last but not least, we have this full moon in your 11th house of friends and communities. How you get out there and network, your interaction with people. You know, you could be changing. You know, you could really actually be changing your expression of how you interact with people in the world. This is significant change, emotions coming up, a different way of, you know, interacting in relationships with people, communities. You could be taking up a cause, something changing, coming up around, you know, this is 5th house, 11th house. So this is romance and creativity. In bringing that, you know, those things coming up, culminating, changing in some way in your 11th house of community experiences and acquaintances. So look for something to come up in that area there, Pisces rising. So that covers all the signs. The other thing I wanted to mention too about what is going on here with this full moon is that we have Mercury here coming into a conjunction with the sun, just like I explained, you know, that Uranus was conjuncting the North Node and what that meant in terms of the Uranus, Aquarius flavor of all of the things that are happening in the sky. But we have Mercury coming into conjunction with the sun. You can see they're very close there, and you know that is a combining of that energy. So Mercury, the mind, messages coming into conjunction with the sun, which is super, super powerful and empowering. This could bring a message of some sort, either intuitively or from somebody, maybe from a family member. This could also make you feel like you have the strength to express or send a message. And again, this is in Cancerian energy, so it's going to be about our emotions, our home, our family in some way. So that is my take on the current energies and this full moon in Capricorn. We do have, like I said, Venus will be moving into Cancer. I'm hoping I'll be able to come back and talk about that a little bit later in the month. Like I said, I'm moving, so things are a little bit wonky. But Venus moving into Cancer, you know, just kind of gives us more Cancerian energy there. We, of course, had Mars move into Taurus earlier in the month. I didn't get a chance to talk about that, but that's an interesting thing. Maybe I'll try and come back and do a video about that, but I did say last time that I was going to try and stick to Cancerian or, you know, topics of the energy during the month that, you know, things are coming up. But, you know, Mars and Taurus is interesting. So, you know, if I get a chance to come and talk about some of those things, I will. But this is what I'm seeing so far. Thanks so much to everybody who has watched the videos that have come out in the past. You know, some of the viewership is going up, and the exposure on some of those things, and I super appreciate it. And if you are interested in a personal reading, please head over to my website at jovisstar.com. It's JOVSSTAR.com. Shoot me a message there through the contact page, and I'd love to meet you, and I'd love to read for you. Thank you for coming. Happy full moon, full super moon. This is big and supercharged. If you've had things going on, drop it in the comments. I'd love to know. I told you what my experience and stories are. I'd like to hear what yours are. And I will see you next time. In the meantime, may the stars forever be in your favor. Take good care. Bye for now.